Welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. We're a transformation series, and we're looking at mind, body, spirit on all of the topics that we discuss. Today, we have a meaningful topic. This topic addresses wellness, it addresses the thought processes, it addresses programming, it addresses and embodies who we really are as a people. And we'll be talking about the core of who we are. And we have none other than the co host, Doc Walker, Aswald Walker. So I'm going to bring him on and we're going to welcome Doc Walker because he has a wealth of information. Those of you who are new to us, you know that he is an educator at University of Houston. You know that he's the author of many books on the topic of history and culture. You know that he's also with the Houston Defender. He's a editor and a writer at the Houston Defender. He's just a whole lot of stuff. And he's also, if I tell you this, then he's also a pastor, a co-pastor at the Black Madonna, the Church of the Black Madonna. So here in Houston, Texas. Those are just a few of the things because he's embodied in the community. And when you speak his name, everybody, I hear some noise. I don't know where it's coming, but when you speak his name, people know that you're going to hear the truth when you talk with him. And that's what I really like about it, that we can talk the truth. So welcome to Doc Aswald Walker and our
Wow.
community, Doc Walker. So this topic keeps coming up, mental health. And I know I've had a lot of years in mental health, but I want us to discuss it from a balanced, a vantage point. And so this is my minority, and that word I have to talk about it. Minority Mental Health Month. But I wanted to really look at because there is no health without mental health. So, but I want us to look at community format or community thinking about mental health. So I wanted to see what is your thought. First, I want to ask this: what is this word minority?
Come on, you already know.
But I want to know from your point of view.
Words have
When we
words.
say
Word.
minority mental health, how can we look at that as
So
we
um,
look at mental health? You see what I'm saying?
so if we're talking about just the word itself, minority, words have power. Um, uh, to always be told that we are the minority, the minority, the minority, it consciously or subconsciously puts in our minds and our spirits that we should accept the minority portion of justice, the minority portion of resources, um, because we are quote unquote the minority. Um, but number one, that's the minority in the United States. Globally, we are not. Globally, we are the majority. And here in the United States, um, people of color, black and brown, are teetering on the verge of becoming the minority in this country, in Houston, which um, Dr. Stephen Kleinberg out of Rice has been saying for years. Houston is a snapshot of what the United States is moving towards. In Houston, the the demographics are almost equal: white, Latino, and black, and that is where the country is moving. So the term minority really should be thrown the heck out. Number one, because it is inaccurate, and number two, because of the damage that it does to us, either consciously or subconsciously. That's my take on that word.
Yes. So maybe we should say cultural mental health month.
I would be down with that.
Okay then. Okay then. Well, let's just say that. So for today. So the thing that I want to get your idea on is when we're talking about mental health
Hmm.
and we're talking about community and history, what is mental health? What is mental health from your as a historian? Well, what would you say? What
So I'm from I'm working with a sister from my church, Janelle Dalila Ag. She's a social work professional. She's even
Yes.
she's retired. I mean, she's been doing great work for so many years,
I
working with
know Sister
parents.
Adrian. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, working with parents and helping them
Mhm.
with their children. But she's starting to do a series of articles, parenting tips, to strengthen our children. And
Mhm.
I don't remember the the Maasai term that she has coined for this series, but it translates to um, how are the children. She said in the Maasai culture, that is their greeting. Their greeting is how are the children, and the response, prayerfully, is the children are doing well, and that response means that the children are doing well, mind, body, spirit. They're being cared for, they're being nurtured, they're being protected. And so, historically, from an African perspective, when you're talking about mental health, you have to include feelings of security. If you don't feel
Mhm.
safe, you're always going to be on edge. Feelings of connection, because uh, we were created literally for relationships and for connection. And so those feelings of isolation and all that brings on depression, anxiety, etc. um, and so good mental health is not just mental, it's mind, body, and spirit. So when we're talking about mental health, we have to talk about diet. Before our program started, we were talking about, Brother Sunshine, who just passed away and who
Yes.
literally brought sunshine to so many lives with his advocacy for
Mhm.
good, healthy food. But, what we eat impacts how we think about ourselves and the possibilities that we have. So, mental health includes diet, but it also includes those relationships, community relationships. But it recognizes, like, there's psychology, then there's black psychology. And black psychologists recognize that I can't do my client any service if I don't recognize just how important spirituality is in our
Mhm.
community, from our
Right.
historical perspective. And then there's also, if you're going to deal with our mental health, we have to recognize the history of Black trauma, the history of
Mhm.
Black trauma, but not only just the history, but the ongoing realities of Black trauma and the damage that it continues to do. So all those things from a historical, but also from a contemporary perspective, um, give us a picture of what is Black mental health, or what do we need to do to make sure that Black mental health is optimized. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is. And I think we have to ask ourselves the question, and I guess I'm posing the question, how do we know, looking at the history,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there's a compilation of stressors and unresolved issues, and someone was saying that oppression, um, that we're in the midst of oppression and privilege, and that being seeing oppression and privilege, how that affects what we think and believe, and how that's impacting our mental health.
Mm.
So, can you talk a little bit about this oppression on mental health and the privilege thing, the combination of that in our society now? How is that? You see,
So I'm not sure what you're saying. What I think
so
I hear
so
you saying is
right,
that we have access to this, that, and the
yeah,
other.
yes,
So we have, it's almost like a tale of two cities. Like we have, you
there
know,
you go.
some folk in our communities who are becoming filthy rich, and we've got, access to information. We can technically live where we want to live, or wherever we can afford to live, go to school where we want. So we have that we didn't have in decades past. But at the same time, we also have levels of personal and group um, oppressions that still impact the quality of our living. The savage inequalities in healthcare, the unequal access to, the savage inequalities in healthcare, the savage inequalities in education, um, the criminal injustice system that 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 not only arrests us for at a higher rate than others who do the same crimes, but give us more time. In all the indicators in the criminal injustice system, it is blatantly unequal, blatantly uh, racist. And so both things can be true at the same time. That we can have all these opportunities, yet all these oppressive forces. And what you find is not only is the general quote unquote middle class of America shrinking, meaning you have this, this 1% that is over here doing great, but on the other side you have this uh, growing groundswell of people who are working class or teetering on poverty or in the middle of abject poverty. So both of those things can
Mhm.
be true at the same time. And just think what that does to a person when you on social media or watching movies and TV and you see all this fabulous stuff that you're supposed to have access to, yet when you go out and live your life, um, like Philando Castillo. He was living his life, and he was a celebrated uh, school worker in the school that he worked, and so he was doing his part. He was, you know, being kind to people, going over and above for others. But his girlfriend, he wasn't even driving the car. His girlfriend was pulled over, um, and he tells the police officer, "Hey, in accordance with the law, I need to let you know that I'm a licensed gun carrier and I have a gun in the car." And within 2 seconds, he was shot dead. So you
Yes.
can have those two realities operating at the same time, and we see
Mhm.
this, and then we see those traumas of black women and men being gunned down police. With the latest being um, Jalen Walker out of Ohio, um, and it
And I
causes.
think the responses are so, I have a grandson that had that situation. Just the response, it's a different response. Like children and young people and boys, they run then when they shouldn't run. It's a response of a knee jerk response because of history, I say. And then we begin to think differently because we're not thinking about the situation itself.
I know
We
a young man who was driving to work, and he was on one of those 2 lane roads, right? Those two
Mhm.
lane roads, and the
Yes.
car in front of him was, according to him, was just going really, really slow. So he just chose to drive around him. There was a police officer behind him, and so now the police want to pull him over. And this brother, um, he knows that logically, the police want to pull you over, you pull over. But in his mind, as a black man, he feared for his life. So he said he
Mhm.
was not going to stop until he was in a public place.
So they kind of teach you that.
And
Mm.
so he gets pulled over, but they charge him with resisting arrest. But all he's thinking about, if I stop here, because it was somewhere between here and Angleton on some kind of backwoods road. He said, if I stop here, that may be the end of my life. Now, this is a
Mhm.
young man who was working a job,
Mm.
and so
Mm.
he's who graduated from college, who has access to all those things that you were talking about, the opportunities, but he
Yes.
also has to deal with the realities of being black in America. Those oppressive systems
Mhm.
still at work.
Mhm. I don't know. Do you think maybe the oppressive systems? Do you think maybe there's not clear connection, or let me see, how can I say it, between the different groups of oppression and privilege, that there is not an understanding of the reality, that there is a clouded understanding of reality. So everything that is done, and this is a question posed because I'm really writing and researching that as to how we know that it impacts our view and perception of reality, but to what extent does that influence what we gravitate toward and what we resist? And how does that really in that the mental health?
I don't. I don't know if it's all that clouded. I mean, I think we are crystal clear on the realities of these. oppressive system. I think it's crystal
Mhm.
clear
Mhm.
that the criminal and justice system is not working in our favor. You can ask Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Freddie
Mhm.
Gray, John Crawford, Rakia Boyd, Jalen Randall, on and on and on. I think that Breonna Taylor, Lord have mercy, we stopped even
Mhm.
calling out her name.
Yes.
That is crystal clear. Um, maybe there's some level of dissonance that's going on because we know what we are worth and what we should have access to, yet still these barriers remain. And it seems as if, no, it doesn't seem as if it actually is, these barriers being erected even higher and higher and higher. I mean, we're talking about levels of voter suppression um, that not only equal but almost surpass past decades. And this is in 2022. Um,
Mhm.
we're seeing, I mean, there were 60 to 80 bullets that riddled the body of Jalen Walker in Ohio. 90 bullets shot at him, and he was initially being pursued for a traffic violation. And so that is where I think the mental stress comes from, because we know that it doesn't matter how much education, how much money, how many titles we stack up behind our last name, that at any moment that can happen to us or our children or someone else that we love. I know it
Right.
stresses me out every time I
Well, I
hear.
know you can't. It's almost as if you can't. But according to theory, the compilation actually moves to the alarm system, so of the body. And I think that this is what we're really seeing. I think we're seeing that brings on insensitivity for protection. It's either you got to deny it to an extent. It's like going crazy, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm,
in a sense, losing your perspective of reality.
mm-hmm,
And so this is when it pushes you to your lack of belief and you have no foundation to lay on. Then what is happening is that you begin to strike out and not knowing in any direction and doing anything. You can see that when you can put anything in hot water.
and Cornel West, he talks about nihilism. um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is a large part of it, right? Where you feel as if absolutely nothing you do will make any
In
difference
difference.
whatsoever. And so when you get to that point, I mean, you are literally the walking dead. You have
The
to have
walking
hope.
dead.
Human beings have to have hope in order to live, in order to
Mm-hmm.
survive. And so that's why being a part of some movement, some organization, some entity that is working towards solution is so
Yes.
critical to Black health. I mean, we went through all manners of hell. Some argue worse than what's going on now. But during all those times, during all those decades, there was enough of us, a critical mass of us, who were involved in these organizations, in these movements, who were fighting for a better day. It gave them hope that I might not achieve it, but my children or my children's children will achieve it. And I believe, I mean, I'm not an esteemed doctor like you are, but I believe that allowed for at least a healthy enough outlook to continue marching on and living your life. And if you don't have that, I don't know what you do. Like, I don't know what a person does if they if they bought into the lie that life is all about going to your 9 to 5, working, coming home, eating, sleeping, getting up and doing it all over again until you die. Like, I don't know how a person survives on that devil's treadmill. I don't know how they do it. For me, I have to have something where I feel like, man, I'm making a difference. I may not
Yes.
be doing all that God called me to do, but right there, I'm making a difference in someone's life. I'm trying to
Yes.
enlighten someone or help someone here, or pass down, my mistakes so they don't make the same mistakes. But I'm doing something to try to push the pile forward. I don't know how
Right.
you live if you're not doing that.
Oh, there's our brother there. Okay then. So I do want to. Uh, can you hear us, brother Rashid?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. I didn't
Oh,
know if you were in the back. I didn't know.
I've been on for a while.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Okay, then. So we're really talking about um, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, what's really going on in our society, not only with the violence, but the community thinking and mental health. This is supposed, we talked about mental health from what different perspectives. Um, and we have covered minority, the whole issue of not being minority necessarily. But so we're looking at the whole idea of wellness. You know, what is health? What is mental health? And so we had different points of views, and we were looking at oppression, oppression and privilege. You know,
Okay.
the different groups and how that might affect different ways of viewing mental health and creating mental health issues
Mhm,
or
mhm.
needs. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, if you got, I can write a thesis on just in 5 minutes I've been here. Hey, you guys covered the areas, I'm telling you.
Well, we're
That's
looking
right.
at what is the question. I have people coming to me, and I think on somebody even mentioned on Saturday, we came up with an idea is that there were two things that were talked. Some people wrote in after they heard us on the program on
Right.
Saturday,
Hmm.
and they were like, "Well, do you need a grant in order to do community programming? If you see for mental health, to provide mental health to people in the community, should you wait? Is there a different way of thinking between oppression and privilege to waiting and doing? And is it an Afrocentric model to actually help other people in the community?" So this is where we are. How does that affect mental health, what we're doing? And when we feel we're out of our gourds, what do we do? You know, where are we?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying. I think Dr. Walker gave an excellent analysis on why, how, what, when, where. We just have to start with the most important thing from the time that we first got here uh, back in the early 1600s. Only three things that could have happened to us. Either we died off, we went back to where we came from, or we changed. That's a starting point. That's a foundation that we
Mhm.
have to really, really pay attention to because what did we change to? The most
Mhm.
important piece to this whole concept is this diabolical, predatory thought process of taking from us that which makes us whole is the problem. And we get historical. We could do a lot of things. Let's just start with that. They took our culture. Uh, let's just think about this. There's a material out right now that really is addressing this particular issue. Until we address it, I mean, getting behind a group, getting part of an organizational structure, getting behind some form of community development piece that we can get behind, so we can have some, as he said, hope, to give us some responsibility. You got to have hope, education, responsibility, advocacy, and support. And Dr. Walker gave a beautiful analysis on how that could transpire.
Yes.
So until we grasp this one thing, there was a scheme, and we have to use this word. We should continue using this word as often as we possibly can to prevent the evolution of the African American culture.
Right.
Now, what was the scheme? We're so educated, we're so indoctrinated, we have been ostracized into this thinking process that we are what we have learned. And as we say, all we are is a culmination of our life experiences. Well, the question is, what life experiences? Was this life experiences ours? Do we maintain our culture? Well, history reflects in the early 1700s and early 1800s that this community called African American had 34 banks in 1910. We
Mhm.
had insurance companies. We had different segments in this country, all throughout America. We were building cities. In Oklahoma alone, we had 60 black incorporated cities. Now, how deep is that rabbit hole?
Right.
We were in New York. We're in Durham, South Carolina. We're in Seattle, Washington, L.A., San Francisco. We're all over this country until 1932, when the predator stepped in and did an analysis on the growth and development of this so-called slave.
Yes.
And they realized, because of the hope, because of the organizational structure, because we worked together, because the laws didn't allow us to go to your school, so we created our own school. The laws didn't allow us to come to your store, so we created our own stores. Our means of exchange was established, and we did this in this country. The problem is we just don't know our history, and we don't know how to culturalize it and access that which we were. Let me just give you a definition of the word history. I mean culture.
So wait, let me just say so we can tie it to what Walker said as we go
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
So then, are you saying that as we move toward cultural privilege between oppression and privilege, that that is one of the key factors that we are losing what's missing there is the history, the knowledge of the self, of where we,
There you go. And, and,
okay.
and and you can't say it any better than that. What is the self? And so that's a whole new definition. We look at the Aztecs. It was 30 million Aztecs when this country first started. Now it's 1.5 million. Look at the Indians. How many Indians were here? We don't even know the history of the Indians that they call Indians. And all of a sudden they're relegated to tribal pieces and properties of land that you can't grow anything on. Well, what about us? If we continue on the path that Dr. Walker is talking about, if we continue letting the fear, the trauma, the stress, the anxiety, the grief, the
Mhm.
poverty, and the irresponsibility on us working together, we will be extinct as well. So just real quickly,
Mhm.
what is culture?
Right.
Culture is a distinct social system that is the cumulative deposit of knowledge, language, our experiences, our beliefs, our values, our attitudes, our hierarchies, our religion, our roles, our church, our schools, our dress, the concepts and material that make up our possessions. We have never been able to own this one key element, our cultural identity. Now,
Mhm.
I'm gonna just give you a little quick thing on what I mean by that culture piece. Juneteenth, we just got Juneteenth.
Right.
How many t-shirt companies do we own in America? How many wristband companies do we own in America? How many print shops do we own in America? So who benefited by our culture existence for due Juneteenth? We didn't. The same system that predator who's been lurking in our community. Every time we get a belief system, they copy it and they sell it to us. Every time our values change, they copy it and they put it on TV and we buy it from them. All of our language. We used to speak Geechee. This is what scared the death out of these Europeans. We had our own language, and they still study our language at Oxford University to this day because we were able to take their information and our information and design it where they didn't know what we were talking about. And we wound up building a Black Wall Street, not only just in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we forgot about Durham, North Carolina. We forgot about Chicago, Illinois. We forgot about Detroit and St. Louis and all these other states and cities that we had operated in, operating with our own culture identity. Therefore, that progress that was being made, these predators decided to wait a minute. This is a nation within a nation. We own more land assets than the Europeans did in this country in the early 1900s. This is unbelievable stuff. We're the greatest nation of people since Timbuktu and don't even know it. We don't even know it. So our culture
I think
identity,
this key that you just keep saying, and we don't even know it.
and we don't even know we don't know, and that's scary.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that's mental health. Okay, what is our
That's
wellness recovery action plan that we put in place? What is
hmm
that? How do we design and create something? It only is going to happen, Dr. Uh, Walker and Dr. Lewis, if we coalesce, unify, organize, structure, and have a purpose that hey,
yes.
we're not going to make it. Our great grandchildren, if we continue this, they won't make it. They tell us already that this is the first generation of children who will not outlive their parents. Why? And you guys were talking about a beautiful statement when you first came on.
hmm
Diet, diet,
Diet.
diet, diet.
hmm
If your physical body is impaired, your mental abilities are definitely destroyed pretty much. Because guess what? We don't even know about neurotransmitters. We don't even know about neurons. We don't know about our mental makeup. on how the connectors are designed, the whole interactive body works in one unit. And once one thing go wrong in it, out of the 11 systems, everything goes wrong in it. So when do we ever recover? What is our wellness recovery action plan? And it's sad to say we don't have one. So
Yeah.
this is what we need to do. Our churches need to get together and recognize, God blesses a child who has his own. We need our own economic system. We need our own business development program. We need to sacrifice and do like our ancestors did. They sacrificed. They
So,
did.
I wanted to add to what you were saying about the own economic system. I can
Hmm.
remember growing up, we had corner grocery stores.
Yes.
We knew the people in the grocery stores,
Hmm.
and we were, and so I can't find one now.
You won't find one now because they can't compete. How do you compete with somebody who about 100,000 loaves of bread and distribute it out the country? You just one store buying 100 just to try to satisfy your community at a higher price. So they outprice us out of the market. That's how they destroyed our black cities. What they did, they opened up grocery stores and Walmarts, and I mean not Walmart's 5 and 10 on the outskirts of our community at a lower price, not allowing that person who was in that community to stay in business because we got culturalized into somebody else's identity. We wanted to process our hair. We wanted to dress like them. We want to stay with, hang out with the Joneses. We want to do all these particular things, and we had trillions of dollars going throughout our community, and we didn't have any control of it. If you don't have a banking system, you can pretty much forget it because how do you fund commerce? And commerce is what drives everything. So the bottom line here, we are participating in somebody else's world. The predators is going to be lurking at every move we make if we're not organized. If we don't have a structure, if we don't have a game plan, what are we going to get behind? So it starts with a small band, a small pilot project that we have to put in place. And that's why I love what you're doing with your program in Houston and the little things that you're doing. That has to be a replicatable model. So we have to master that so we can say, hey, this works. Let's take it over here. Hey, this works. Let's take it over here. The same thing they did in Black Wall Street. That was
Yeah.
the lesson. It wasn't that they burned the city down because we had many cities better than in Tulsa before that. But all those people who got burned down wound up going to Tulsa. That's what it made Tulsa so easy to do because you had knowledgeable people who had already done this before. We have done this already, but we have lost this. A whole, probably the last two generations of young people, we have lost them.
Dr.
Yes,
Lewis, you,
yes.
you you didn't tell me I was going to class today.
Well, listen.
I'm
I told
referencing you guys.
somebody that we had. I told somebody that we had the two people. They're going to be listening to this on Tuesday, next Tuesday evening at 7 on Culture Vision. I'm going to tell people right now, please download Culture Vision TV app so you can have it on your phone. Send it to everyone. The goal of what we're doing is to make sure that what we're talking about, that our younger people, and we're asking people to sit and talk with their young people with this, and we're bringing churches together so this can be a forum for church, school, after school. We have other programs that link with it so that it makes some sense. So
Dr.
that
Lewis, are you saying culture with an E or
culture,
cultural?
yes, cult CULTURE vision,
Culture vision,
Culture
all one
Vision
word.
TV, Culture
Okay.
Vision TV app.
I'm telling you,
Download it on your phone.
this
We're
is
there every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
this
And
is
you guys will be on next Tuesday, 7 p.m. And I want everybody to hear, because what we're talking about, it seems like we're talking about a lot of things, but we're really talking about one thing:
one thing.
the absence of knowing who we
Culture,
are
man.
and the
Culture.
impact. The impact.
One
Right.
And
one one
what
person
you're
called
doing, what
culture.
yes.
One person called culture a group's foreign policy. Another scholar called culture our immune system. And I was thinking about that when Dr. Rashid was talking, because if we know ourselves, we
Mhm.
are just healthier
Right.
mind, body, and spirit. But
That's
without that
right.
knowledge, all kinds of ailments and all kinds of negative entities can enter into us and do all kinds of damage and create cancerous situations to us as individuals and as a community. So I really appreciate you
That-
teaching us, Dr.
yeah.
Richard.
The beautiful part about this, if we just if we just knew what our history was like, and our children just so hung up in this new world order they talk about. There's a book out called The Rehabilitation of the African American Male, and I read the whole book. There was only one line in there that I remember to this day. I read it about 15 years ago, and it just caught my attention. But it was so powerful. It was a senator in Congress, and they were talking about the slave in 1832. Now think of 1832.
Mm-hmm.
And the statement was, I remember like the back of my hand. I don't know why. I thank God for it. It said, "We have almost eliminated any possibility that knowledge could enter the slave's mind. If we can extinguish this one part of them, we will be safe, and they will be like beasts of the field."
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Lewis, Dr. Walker, you know good and well, our children are acting like animals right now.
Yes, that's
There's
what.
no consciousness. What was that man talking about? And you know the problem about it? He was talking about food. He was telling us if we keep feeding them the wrong food, they can't function right. If I got fat, saturated fat, if I got all those things and ingredients in it, they was feeding us animal food. People don't know corn on the cob was for the animals. Apples were for the animals. It's certain things we just can't eat because of the poison content that's in it that is causing us to probably misfire mentally. So food, the study of the human cell, and this is what I do on Tuesdays. I hate that you have this. I'm gonna say I hate it. It is what it is. On Tuesday, we talk about the study of the human cell every single Tuesday, and I'd love to send you a link because it's recorded. And they
I
talk
do
about.
too. I do too because on the third Saturday we talk about on the third Tuesday
Mhm.
uh, we're talking about at looking at the chromatin, and we're trying to look at the neurological system. The doctor
Oh,
we
11.
started.
We have
If we could
11
just
body functions. We have 200 cell types in our body.
Mhm.
200 cell types and 75 to 100 trillion cells. It's like, wait a minute. I have to when I talk to my young kids, I always do this one thing. I say, look here, how did you get here? Oh, your mom and daddy had sex. No, your daddy had a sperm cell, your mother had an egg cell. Those two cells were so intelligent. They had atomic intelligence to create everything about you: two eyes, two ears, two hands, two legs, football fields, a vein, put everything in its right place. Where does that knowledge come from? Are cells that important? Evidently, they are. Because if we don't know ourselves, we don't know ourself. Now, what's the difference? Take the word self. Now, take the F off. What does it say? Self. They was telling us the answers, but the language is not ours. See, we have someone else's language, and they tell us that English is a bastard language. We've heard that so many times. So what do you mean? It's the last language on the planet Earth. So to try to interpret something in English is one of the most confusing things that our children can do. And so
See,
unless you know another language, you are subjected to a language that uses you and maneuvers your thinking process, and you don't even know it's happening to you. And that's shameful.
so we were talking about that we needed to young children today. You
Yeah.
and Dr. Walker today. What is it that how would you then deliver this to youth? See, how would
Simple.
you get youth entwined? I know we're bringing them on through different courses to have them think critical thinking, learn skills, learn how to eat and stuff. But when you're talking about the cell and when you're talking about history, Doc Walker, then how would you then integrate that?
Two
Yes.
things I two things I would say. One is, and I'll push back on Dr. Rashid a little bit. I do see that the animalistic actions of so many of our youth, but there are
Okay.
also a lot of our young people that
Absolutely.
are out there doing it, that are out
Absolutely.
there looking
Absolutely.
for ways to make a difference. And I
Yes.
think we have to celebrate them, honor them, and support them.
Yes.
Number two, going back to something else Dr. Rashid said, he talked about um, living examples. And that just reminded me of my church, the Shrine. So, we purchased 4,000 acres of farmland in South Carolina. We call it Beulah land. And our
Mm.
goal is to develop this land, not so that we can stick our chest out, but so that it serves as an example for other groups, other churches, other whoever to do the same thing. We've got to have working, viable, successful examples.
Absolutely.
Black folk have heard all the raps that
Yes.
there ever was and that there ever
Mhm.
will be. So it's not about waiting for some new leader to come and talk to us in such a beautiful way that we are moved to action. We need to see something that is up and running, something that is working. And when we have that, people will gravitate to it because over there, my life is better. Over there, my needs are being met. And so I'm going to get with that or I'm going to duplicate that. So I really
Yes.
appreciate you,
Yes.
Dr. Rashid, saying we've got to have those
Absolutely.
examples. And
And
it can come from anywhere. It can
yeah,
come from anywhere. It can come from the Women's Resource Center. It can
yes,
come from Shape Community Center, the Nation of Islam, Seha,
right.
Sunshine's restaurant. It can come from there. It can come from the Shrines of the Black. It can come from anywhere. But we've got to have those groups working on it. And we've got to,
And that's what I'm thinking, and
we
working
have to divorce
together.
ourselves
Mhm.
um, from our personal pride and say,
Yeah,
There
okay,
you
if
go.
that's
There you
working,
go. Mhm.
we're gonna be with it. We're gonna
yeah,
support it.
yeah. And I would add to that. Thank you for letting us know that we do have prominent individuals out here who are doing really, really well. Uh, we're in a war,
Mhm.
and until we understand that we are in a war and our children are at risk, our lives are at risk. They've changed everything back to the Jim Crow days. It's going to continue. It's not going to get any better. But the only way these people will have power over us, and I call them the powers that be, forget the ethnic background or whoever it is, it's a mindset.
It's a mind.
Until we give them the power, they can't do anything. We keep giving
Right.
them the power. So with what Dr. Walker just said, you bought 4,000 acres of land. My God. I mean, that is powerful. And the
Mhm.
development of that land, I don't know what the plan is, but I would love to talk with you because there's people right now who are putting up manufacturing plants to build housing. They don't have the land to build the housing. The average salary is $40 an hour, and they're training people, and they're looking for 12 to 15 acres of land to put these manufacturing plants on, and it creates a whole community program that you could build cities on. It's just an unbelievable concept. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of things. We just don't know who they are. So
Right.
Yeah.
our goal is to identify.
Yes.
We need a strategic planning committee whose sole purpose is to save our children.
There you go.
I mean, you
Mhm.
call SOS. I call it, we got to come up with strategies to save people. We got to come up with, if you're in a war and everything about you is at risk, our
Mhm.
dollars should be like tools. Where do we put our dollars? Are they being taken away from us? Are they being put in specific places to give us a benefit? We have to look at our dollars being our troops. These are our weapons, our dollars.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
at 1.8 trillion dollars, these are the weapons that we have.
Oh,
How
oh.
are we using them? How are we using them in this war to win this battle? Because it's all about the battle of the mind and the battle of whoever owns the mind owns the dollar. So until we manage our dollars, we'll never own our own mind because we become, as they always say, we're the best consumers on the planet Earth. And we the best producers. We just don't realize what we have produced in this country. GPS system, the sciences, the math, the algebra. This comes from us. They stole these ideas from our thinking by putting us on these jobs. And if you come up with an idea, you don't own it anymore because you work for me. This is the kind of stuff by not being entrepreneurs in our thinking. This is what made 1800s, 1910, 1920 so powerful. When they saw us using our brains, they did what? They put legislation in place. They created fear. They created violence. They did all those things that scare us to death. But the thing about it, if you don't have anything to live for, you don't have anything to fight for. So you got to be able to die for this vision. You got to know that we have a community that needs to be developed. We have to see this war at hand. And until we do so, it's going to be a very difficult task. And we have the tools. We have the historic black colleges. We have our churches. We have all the groups and organizations that Dr. Walker was talking about.
Mhm.
We have to begin to have a planning session like they did in 1920 before they burned down Tulsa, Oklahoma. They put together a strategy to blow up economically in this country. And when they evidently they had a plan in there, so somebody went and told Master Charlie, what we was getting ready to do. 1 year later, they took care of us. We have to be smart. We have to be
Yes.
conscious. We have to have security. This is a war. So all the things that a war requires, guess
Mhm.
what? We have to have the same thing. Harriet Tubman said, I could have seen a whole bunch of them, but some of those guys didn't want to lead. They didn't want to do something. They would ran back. Oh, they went that way, master. Or they went over there. So you killed the opportunity and the purpose that we have in mind. So what is our purpose? It's survival. Even insects try to survive. Cells, microbes, viruses, their main focus is survival. And they'll use you to survive if you don't take care of yourself. A virus will just step in and just have microbes eat you alive if you don't pay attention to it. Everybody wants to survive. Where's our instinct? By our conscience being taken away from us, by our thought process being taken away from us, by our cultural identity not existing. What are we? What did James Baldwin say? If you don't have a culture, you are invisible.
Can we just can we come up with, before we end, like some things that we're going to leave and discuss what we're going to leave with the audience, like what they can clearly see? What I'm finding is that everybody's looking for an action. They want to see what's the call to action specifically, from people that they can trust. We talked about diet. I know that we're doing the cooking shows live. We're doing teaching people. We're doing trainers. We're doing webinars. What is it that we need to do to be in this war, to respond to the war? What is it that the people that are listening need to begin to learn about their culture? What can they use? What do they need to know?
You asking me?
I'm just
Oh,
throwing
okay.
it,
No problem.
put it out there.
No problem. Let
Dr.
Doctor.
Walker, you can chime in. I'm just trying to get it
Okay.
so we don't leave them with a lot of discussion and they can't ferret through to
Hmm.
say, what do you need to start doing now? I know one thing is, we're training churches, we're calling churches to
Hmm.
start training through Bible school to teach history, to teach the history, and link it with what we know about history from the Bible, for
Hmm.
use in their church school. This is what we're asking the churches that we're working with. And I'm hoping Aswald Walker is one of the trainers that's doing the webinar. We meet on the 11th and the 17th, I think it is, or whatever, to
Hmm.
plan how that's going to be implemented in the community. Dr. Walker. That's on a Monday. That's what they came up with.
Okay.
So I'll say one thing I would suggest everyone do is join a group that is working towards a solution, whether that group be a community center, a civic center, a church, temple, or mosque, whatever. Because what we what we are called to do cannot be done individually.
Individual,
It's got to be a collective. So I'll just say that.
Yeah.
collective. Mhm.
It has to be collective. I'm in total agreement with that. Uh, education, education. That is sacred. Until we understand, till we can perceive, till we can reason, until we can use logic, we're not going to get anywhere. So I'm going to leave you with this. If you don't know that all you are is a culmination of your life experiences, then you're in trouble. It's mental health right now. I can't
Mhm.
even perceive to even join anything unless I'm thinking properly. I can't. I don't even want to be bothered or get involved in anything unless I'm thinking properly. So what happened to us? Not what's wrong with us, has to be addressed, Dr. Lewis. We have to figure
Mhm.
this out. So we talk about cultural identity. If I had to bring you up to par on your thinking process on who you are, know thyself. Let's call it know thyself. Uh, civic and social responsibility. Our children don't even think about anything like that. So when you start talking about joining a neighborhood association, a community group, an organization, where are we? So let there rise among you a small band. It could be one church at a time. And when
Mhm.
you replicate and you master that one and you replicate that over and over again, the lessons have already been laid, history has already been given to us, and we don't have to come up with nothing new. Our history already reflects our culture identity. We have to learn how to use it, and we also have to understand how to define that culture. Our children have to know it ain't about, the apple pie. Well, we could make all the apples in the world. We can create
Mhm.
all the apps in the world if we want to if we use our own brain, but the thing about it is, mentally, we are disturbed. And until we address the mental health of our community and the cultural health of our community through education, we will never make any progress whatsoever. Now we'll do a lot of different things, but I'm talking about coalescing the whole Afro diaspora. That we
Mhm.
are huge. We are the greatest group of people since Timbuktu. And it's hard for us to
Mhm.
imagine that. It's hard for us to imagine. Oh, what's
Mhm.
Timbuktu? One problem. You don't know what that is either, do you? But our culture here in this country is powerful. It's God given. It's something
Mhm.
that God has given us justice and freedom from. He
Mhm.
put us here for a reason. And our job is to do what? Change the world. And I believe that from the bottom of
Mhm.
my heart, this group of people in this country will change the dynamics of the human society.
Oh, thank you. Thank both of you. And I'm hoping that our audience will know what's coming. Please join us on Saturday Morning Wellness Live every Saturday. Um, what we're talking about today is actually demonstrated at another level, and you actually learn, get information. It's more of an education connection. And you'll see cooking live, you'll hear herbal medicine, you'll hear the doctors talk about whole body wellness, you'll hear about the cells and how it's controlling your thinking, you'll hear African American knowledge about who you are, and tidbits about little topics like procrastination and rethinking. How do you love yourself when things are difficult? Finding out who's next to you. All different kinds of toxic. All of this is important to what we're speaking about today. So I'm just going to sign off today. I know they're telling us our time is off. I want to thank our educators, topics, and presenters today. Mr. Rashid, I call him Brother Rashid.
That's
I
okay.
call him. He has a name. We're partnering with him through the Redemption Project, and I'm just so excited about all of the things. And Brother Dr. Oswald, Dr. Walker, we'll be talking about that and coming together to look at all of the things that we're looking at. So I'm just going to remind the group today: renew beliefs, rebuild faith, and reconnect families and communities. For it is not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines health, happiness, and success. Sign on for our next international mental health coaching class. Go to wrc-houston.com and sign on. You have a scholarship awaiting you to be able to take the class and help your community. And also express your interest, and we will send you a link for the Saturday morning wellness. Okay, then I'll look forward to that. And I hope you guys do get together to talk about property and food.
Oh yeah, Doc. I put my phone number into the
Very
chat.
good.
So Dr.
Very
Walker,
good.
we,
Excellent.
I know he's a mover and a shaker. I
Yes.
told you I was ready to write my paper as soon as I listened to you guys in the first 5 minutes. Man, I said y'all got
Oh, you're
it.
ready. You're ready. You're
You
ready.
have it.
You're
All
I'll be
ready.
right.
I'll be calling you this evening.
Very
I
good.
got your
Okay,
Appreciate
number.
you.
then. Okay.
Appreciate
Thank you so
you.
much. That's what
Okay.
it's all about, locking arms.
All right.
Okay, then. Thank you. Have a good evening,
Thank
everybody.
you
Good
now.
day.
All right,
All
Joe.
right. Peace.
Okay, bye.